Hey everyone, we are back with the second webinar. So again, this time my guest is Gore. We're going to talk about the AimQL, the AIM query language. Gore is going to share a little bit of its internals, and we are then going to go share a screen and share some examples, and as well as kind of ask a little bit more in-depth questions around why and how it's designed the way it's designed. So yeah, it's excited to get started. Again, just so this is me, host Gav, and Gore is, we both on the authors of the project. So yeah, we are super excited.
Yeah.
So okay.
Hey everyone, Gav, thanks for introduction. So yeah, I'm Gore, I'm co-author of AIM. I'm mainly focused on product and tech. And today we will go over the overall AIM structure, how it works, and we'll have a deep dive into AIM query language. So yeah, I will share my screen now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Oh, second.
I love your web browser.
Yeah, Arc is really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so AimQL. So let's have a look at today's agenda. So we'll go over the story structure, and then we will see how what's AIM query language syntax looks like, and how easy it's actually to write queries and filter track data. And then we'll see how AIM query language works from the UI, and how you can query data via using AIM SDK. So AIM storage actually is based on the RocksDB, which is a low-level key-value storage, and AIM storage is composed from a number of RocksDB containers actually, which store runs metadata. So AIM storage, you can imagine AIM storage as a superdict, like a superdict, where each run is a separate tree, like a big dictionary, which held the all the runs metadata, like hyperparameters, learning rate, batch size, dataset metadata, and sequences such as metrics, image sequences, and all the stuff that is tracked via AIM SDK. Yeah, so you can see in the illustration how it looks like. Here are containers which are actually runs, and here are, for example, sequences. This can be a metric sequence, for example, which is composed from a sequence of float numbers. And there can be other sequences as well, like image sequences, figure sequences, and etc. The overall structure looks like something like this. So on the bottom level is the RocksDB, is the data. On top of RocksDB is wrapped with AimRocks, which is a Python wrapper for RocksDB. And on top of that is AIM storage, which can have multiple AimRocks databases located at the aim.aim repo. And each database, each storage, each container holds metadata related to a single run. And on top of that is CLA, AIM CLA, and AIM SDK, actually. So AIM SDK helps to track data and query data later if needed. Let's talk a bit about runs and containers. So containers are actually connected sequences with properties. Sequence type is just is a sequence of any Python object, actually. So it can be numbers. In case of numbers, the sequence will be just a metric. And when querying, fetching metrics on the UI, you will see a line chart, for example. There can also be sequences of images, which you can see and visualize with Images Explorer on the UI, for example. And all these connected, let's say, grouped sequences can have properties. In the context of machine learning trainings, these are mostly runs, hyperparameters. And you can see in the example, in the example code snippet, it can be learning rate, batch size, and tons of other hyperparameters that describe the run. And it really helps to compare different runs together via different dimensions by hyperparameters to see and learn correlations and learn patterns and learn how a hyperparameter affected run. Yeah. And so this is just a sample script, and it's very easy to integrate AIM into code. You just import run, initialize the run object, so you track the training hyperparameters, and just start tracking metrics and other sequences as well. Language syntax. So AIM query language is fully Pythonic, which means you just write and run Pythonic expressions, if statements over all the tracked data. And it's very, very easy to get started as it's fully Pythonic, and you don't actually need to learn anything new for anything new. So here is an example how to get all the train losses where the last value is smaller than 25. You just query run.metrics accuracy, and that last is smaller than 21. And actually you can write, so this is a very, very simple example. You can write even more complex Python expressions and use built-in Python built-in functions and run it right from the UI. We'll see, and we'll have go over some examples a bit later. Querying from UI. So the main tools in AIM are actually explorers, which help to query across all the track data and visualize data via UI and be able to very quickly compare tracked experiments. So for example, there is metric explorer that enables querying over all the tracked metrics and grouping, aggregating, comparing different runs via, for example, hyperparameters, and learning how, for example, a certain value of learning rate affected the training, impacted the training. And there are other explorers as well, such as runs explorer, parameters explorer, images explorer, scatters explorer, figures explorer, and so on. Each explorer is designed to help to query and visualize a certain type, a certain AIM sequence type, as the name actually suggests of the explorer. As well as you can query and further analyze any track data via AIM SDK, and the query syntax is the same. AIM query language has the same syntax regardless the environment. So be it UI or SDK, you write the same query and get the track data and do with it whatever you want later. So yeah, thank you. This was the.
Thank you very much, Gor. I really appreciate this quick presentation about the AimQL. So my God, it seems like there's so many questions. I have so many questions. My questions are in pretty much two kind of groups. The first group of questions that I'm kind of interested in is pretty much around a lot of them are around the presentation. And then the second group, we will just dive into more examples. Maybe hopefully you share your screen or some other way. So we'll just try to see the AIM query language in practice.
Yeah.
The first question I have is, so why is AIM designed to have a Pythonic query language? Why Pythonic?
So the main benefit actually having a Pythonic expression versus, for example, SQL is that all the AI practitioners that code in Python actually already know that, and there is no need to learn something else. And you can write even complex queries. For example, if you want to filter by tags that starts with production dash something, some version, you can write them very easily without having the need to learn some complex joins or other stuff. So the simplicity probably is the most beneficial thing here.
So when you say Pythonic query language, like in Python, obviously there are variables, right? There's lots of things you can use like to program, right? With AIM, what is available for you to access in terms of objects or variables, right? Like what's available to query to use in the if statement, the way you described in your presentation?
So when tracking and setting any type of parameters, same parameters, I mean like in the AIM context parameters, from machine learning training context, that can be hyperparameters or any dictionary that you potentially want to be able to filter and query later on. For example, as I mentioned, hyperparameters like learning rate or batch size or data set metadata. You just track them as a dictionary and can filter by any item, any key later on. It stores it as a dict, and then you can write and do it whenever you want, like whatever you can do in Python, as the queries are run in Python environment.
So it turns out to be when you're querying in AIM, you're dealing with this massive kind of dictionary, which has some predefined, variables like runs, like pretty much those are predefined variables you can use to access the dictionary, right? And then once you know that, and everything else is available and like an open field that you can like literally query anything that you have tracked, be it a run name, metric name, I don't know, a hyperparameter, whatever that you have named, you have tracked that's in the dictionary.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a fair game. Is that what you? That's interesting. That's interesting. I have one more question. So okay, great. That's Pythonic. This is amazing. But what about like, is it possible to support an SQL? SQL alongside or instead of Python, like what, or not instead, but alongside Python or on top of Python? What's your thoughts about like the SQL as a query language?
Yeah, of course. Basically, any query language or syntax can be supported, and we are like very community driven. And if there is a high and if for example, querying by SQL is a high requested feature, we will definitely look into it.
Awesome. So it's possible to also enable SQL. Basically.
Yes.
SQL,
yeah, of course.
Awesome. Awesome.
Can be added.
Can I ask an open-ended question? So how does what happened? And I believe you sort of touched upon this in your presentation, but maybe it's worth having a deep dive, or like relatively deep dive. What happens under the hood when data is logged? Like, suppose I'm a first-time user of AIM. Let me rephrase my question. So first, suppose I'm a first-time user of AIM. I've gone through documentation. I've copy-pasted the kind of the getting started code. I've seen it works, but what happens under the hood? What happens since I copy pasted and I run my Python, and then I see on the UI? What happens in between?
So yeah, great question. So actually, you let's say you have a already ready training script and a ready model. You just instrument AIM SDK, meaning you add like initialize the run, add lines to track hyperparameters, track metrics, images, and other metadata that you need to track. SDK collects the data, collects Python objects that you want to track, and there is a sequence like types of encoding, decoding, and this type of processing of the data, and then it's get appended to the RocksDB storage and to the corresponding container speaking more technically, a bit more technical and in AIM terms. And it's the whole process. So data is collected via SDK, it's processed, and then appended to the RocksDB storage.
Here's a tricky question. So you execute Python code. Can you do any shady stuff? Like, is this secure? Can I import OS? Can I import OS?
This is really a good
query
question.
language.
Yeah, so this was the main points that we kept in mind when developing AimQL, and the queries are actually run in the restricted Python environment, which parses AST, abstract syntax tree, of your statements queries and removes all the potential harmful parts of the expression. So, for example, if there are writes to the file system, there are requests or other potentially harmful operations, it just get removed from the tree, and only read operations regarding the storage remain.
So if I have an import OS and OS that write whatever a file path,
it will will not work.
Magic. Sounds like magic to me.
But
awesome.
Just an addition, you can actually use some built-in functions. For example, you can use any function, you can use min, max functions, and some basic functions that are secure functions, let's say. So there are no writes, no way to delete something from file system, and no way to harm anything.
Awesome. That's perfect. Thank you. So I guess we can jump into the second part of the
of course,
of the webinar, and like really dig into like live examples of what's possible. If you're okay, I'm gonna keep asking you questions.
yeah, of course, please. So yeah, I will switch to the. Let's see how to exit the slide show. Yeah, awesome. So here we have an AIM demo, and we can go over some examples. Let me just give a brief overview of this project. So here are like 56 training grounds. This is an translation task, the neural translation task, and this includes training grounds for English, Russian language pair. So here are like 56 examples, and we can run some queries and see how AimQL works in action. AimQL is in action.
Awesome. First question. How can I query everything that I've ever logged in terms of metrics?
Yeah. So
in the AIM UI.
You can just write true, and while this works, I will explain how this works actually. So AIM query language and AIM search in general works in this way. It iterates over all the storages these containers runs, and it tries to run expression and see that if the statement value is true. And when it matches true, it returns the matched metrics in this case. So if I just run true, it will be true for all the metrics, all the sequences, and all they will be returned. So here are so we have probably like 30 metrics, and there are 56 training grounds. So here are almost, I don't know, it will be like hundreds of metrics probably. Yeah.
Nice. Can you show me? Can you, for instance, show me how you can query the metrics of the runs that, say, for instance, have a specific loss value?
Yeah, of course. So we can say run metrics. So this will query those runs where the loss value is subset train. So this says get the 1 second blast. So here what we do, we filter and keep only those runs where tracked train losses are, for example, below certain point, for example, 3.5. And this will remain filter and return only those runs where loss is below this and the given point. So there are already like 20 matched runs. 40 out of 56. Yeah, so this returned only those runs where the last point of loss score is below 3.5.
Okay, here is a kind of bit more like a more easier one. Can you query for me all the runs that's been executed in the year of 2021, for instance?
Yeah, of course. So I can just change these two expressions. I will just write and. So we have this auto-populated column, let's say an item created that, and you can just add dot year equals to, for example, 2021, and this will filter out and return all the runs that were executed during 2021 year, and the last type of loss is below 3.5.
Here's a kind of orthogonal question. So there's a bunch of different explorers on the AIM UI.
Yes.
So is querying somehow differs from one explorer to another?
So actually the query syntax AimQL is the same across all the explorers, across all the environments, UI, SDK, even for CLI, is the same. But as the explorers are designed to display and visualize, query display different AIM sequence types, you should write the type correspondingly. So for example, if I here write, let me choose, for example, only loss metric. In the edit mode, which is a bit more for more advanced use cases, you will see that, oh, this is my previous example. Let me run it again. So here you will see, so instead of just metrics, you should write images or figures when writing, for example, metric dot name equals to loss. In the images explorer or in text explorer, in figures explorer, I will have to write not metric dot name, but figures dot name. So this is the only distinction between different explorers. The overall query language is the same across all the explorers, all the environments.
I think this kind of opens up another question. So you just said, oh, run dot, you just queried, so in one of the first we just queried run dot something, and then now you just say figures dot something. So what does it mean to query a run versus querying a metric? Because I see that it seems there is some kind of difference.
So let's start from a metric, for example. This is the sequence variable, a proxy variable actually, which loads needed parameters, the needed items lazily, and it's auto-populated during the search under the hood in AIM. And when writing metric.name or, for example, metric.context, in this way, I can get access to the corresponding value, for example, to the metric name or to the metric context. In case of, for example, when the storage iterates over metrics like loss, accuracy, and other metrics, it will populate the metric variable to have enable to access the name and other items that are stored in AIM storage. And this is for metrics, and also you can actually access this container that groups different type of sequences, which is run in the context of machine learning. You can actually access it like metric.run.hparams.learning rate, for example, and have an access to the track type of parameters as well, in case you want to, for example, filter by learning rate or by size or any other hparam. You can also, there is a shortcut. You can just write just run hparam without this metric prefix. This is just a shortcut, so this is an alias for usability reasons.
That's nice. That's nice. Can I ask another question? Well, I guess my last question. So, can you show me a trick on the query language that could be either surprising or interesting or both?
Yeah. So in AIM, you also can create and set tags on runs, and for example, let's I've already created a tag called production best v1, for example, and we can set it here as well on these runs, but it's already set. And I can actually even filter by run tags and use some Python magic. For example, I can query the loss metrics of all the runs, which has a tag that starts with best prefix. So for that, I will write any, let's say, tag starts with best in for tag in run tags. So this is it. So what I do here, I just iterate over all the runs. I then iterate over all the tags of a single run, and I just write check if that tag starts with the best, and it should return two results here. Let's see if it works. So yeah, here you can see that all these losses have attached tag best v1, and here can be any other tag. Here can be attached several lines, several tags actually as well.
That's super nice. I actually have two more questions, if that's still okay. So there, from what I know, there are two modes of querying from the UI, right? What are the differences between those two? So you have been querying only in this kind of, there is this in a pencil button that changes the mode, right? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So we have in AIM there are two modes. Simpler mode where you can just there is a drop down which lists available metrics. For example, you can just pick some of them and write filtering over runs. And there is also this advanced search mode where actually you can write any query. And for example, here I selected manually, let's say loss, NLL loss for validation, PPL for train. There can I just write, for example, just write metric dot name in and give a list of metrics I want to visualize and analyze. And having this in this form actually powers me as a user to write more complex question. For example, metric name ends with, or metric name ends with, I don't know, loss. There are several
Should it be in
losses.
metric.name?
Loss. Oh, yeah. Thanks for pointing out. Yeah. So, or I can just write a thing like this, and it will return all the metrics which name ends with loss.
Yeah, so this sounds like a hardcore mode, like when you want to reject any UI sugars and any kind of helps from the designers. All right. And one last question. Well, maybe, hopefully, the last question. Great. So since you can query the hell out of your RAM experiments and everything you have chucked in AIM, look, how can I save a query on the AIM UI? Like, how can I come back to a query if I want to?
Yeah, great question. As sometimes you just write tons of queries, and some of them you look each day. And this was one of the most requested features from the community, and we added a feature like a bookmarking, and you can just create a bookmark. For example, losses comparison, save it, and then return to the bookmark later on when you need it. So in the bookmark section, you already I see this losses comparison, and I can view bookmark and go to the my saved view where the last query was metric name ends with loss.
Awesome. Gor, thank you very much. I'm completely run out of any questions I had. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for sharing this much knowledge about how AimQuery language works. And yeah, until the next webinar. So yeah, really excited. It was great. It was good fun. Yeah, to the next one. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye bye.